If you could just say your name and what you do for a living.
Sure. So my name is Dylan Wadler. I'm an electrical engineer who basically makes electronics for mass spectrometers.
Cool. I've always thought mass spectrometers are awesome tools.
They're definitely interesting, although what I've been doing right now is mainly about this redesign for a product that's probably about as old as I am, for making it, basically taking it into the modern age. And there's a lot of motor drivers. So it's mainly a robotics project than anything, which is kind of fun. So a lot of interesting things. And given that I'm the only electrical engineer, I get to have a lot of say. So makes things fun.
Cool. And why did you want to do the 0 to ASIC course?
Sure. So a lot of the stuff I did in college was processor design and focusing a lot on Verilog and hardware description language stuff. I've always liked digital logic things, and I had a curiosity for it, so I was considering taking this course as sort of a litmus test to see if I wanted to pursue this further for like a master's degree or PhD.
And did the course help you make that
Yeah,
decision?
I definitely think I do want to. I've been trying to look up local professors just to see if I could talk to about what options I would have to pursue this further. I definitely found that during the week that I was trying to get prepared for MPW4 and get my submission out, was probably not to, I guess, over exaggerate, but it was probably the happiest I've been in a long time. Uh, just because like I like the challenge and difficulty of it, but it's still done in an approachable way that was not like completely over my head.
That's good to hear. What part did you enjoy? I mean, you enrolled and then you taped out pretty quickly, like I think within 2 or 3 weeks. So
So yeah, the timeline was basically Thanksgiving was right when I signed up for the course. We then talked that Friday after, like that week afterwards. Then I basically ran through the beginning of the course, couldn't work on it till the next weekend, did the rest of it up to the point of uh, basically hardening. Um, and then around then, I think it was almost Christmas, and I was basically planning out, drawing a lot of sketches. And then right during Christmas break, through the uh, basically a day or so before the deadline, I was just working on the design. So yeah, it was. I initially didn't think I would even bother trying, but people in the Discord were sort of goading me to do it anyway. So I'm like, well, screw it, might as well try,
yeah,
and managed to edge it out. So yeah, I tried to choose a design that wasn't super difficult, but like I mentioned, I do like challenges. So I thought the little RGB stuff wasn't um, as much of a challenge as I would have liked. So decided to go a little bit insane.
yeah. We'll get onto that in just a second. A
Sure.
couple other questions for you. What part of the course did you enjoy the most?
Um, let's see. I guess the actual hardening process and trying to figure out how it's actually working was neat, but I did like actually. I think the probably the light bulb moment was more so about um, some of the test benches and verification stuff, because I felt like a lot of the things I was doing in college were, I mean, we were just thrown into it, so I had to learn Verilog from scratch, and then after we already had our first lab submission, they taught us Verilog, so it was kind of difficult, and I had a bit of a shaky foundation to start, and so writing test benches has been a little bit difficult. So then having a bit of structure there was definitely nice, and then having the formal verification part additionally, it was like it just felt nice that I could be able to have something that I know is going to be functional instead of just guessing for a long time and then looking at waveforms and then not knowing what the hell I'm doing.
Cool. Okay, and would you recommend the course to somebody else?
Yeah, definitely.
Have you done yet?
Yeah, I've done to a couple people. I couldn't help myself but show off some of the stuff I was doing to a couple
Yeah.
of friends. Whether or not they're going to sign up is a different story, but
Yeah, no,
we'll see.
it's fine. Yeah, so let's talk about your tape out then. So
Sure.
it was called SPRAID, right?
So the idea was basically taking uh, like SPI flash in array configuration because I thought it was probably not the most complicated thing in the world, but also probably one of the more ridiculous options you could do because, well, I like to try to do something that's interesting yet also esoteric because why not? It's fun.
Yeah. So were you going for uptime or performance?
Um, Functionality.
Functionality. Start with functionality.
So yeah, I wasn't too concerned with performance. I was mainly concerned with more or less having something that would work. Because if you end up going through what I did, I could only write one 32-bit word at a time. So I do want to eventually make it so you can write more because this was mainly a flaw in my understanding where I found out afterwards you can have sequential writes. So you just have the one address and then continue writing data until you stop. But there's also mainly trying to get state machines in an easily manageable format. And especially with only basically a week to do this, I didn't want to have to spend a lot of time going through. Um, Uri actually ended up mentioning about using uh, FRAM instead of the SPI NOR flash that I was considering initially, just because you'd have to erase the entire 4K sector or 4K block, no segment, sector, whatever. I think it is sector. Um, if they erase the entire 4K sector in order to actually write anything, which would then mean I'd probably have to have some sort of cache. So instead of writing every single, even if you change one bit, you have to erase the entire thing to make sure that it's functional. So this at least saved me a little bit. Um, but yeah, so there's a lot of small things that led me to this decision of just trying to keep it simple. At least, again, this was more or less a design to try to keep simple enough that could be done without giving me more headaches than needed, while also still doing something interesting.
Yeah. So do
But
you think you're going
yeah,
to do an update and get that on a future tape out as well?
yeah, that would definitely be nice. I think so. A couple of things I wanted to do was add in, well, definitely add in a cache because that would increase performance dramatically. And then also those sequential writes and reads would be great, and supporting more flash chips. I did note that my initial uh, understanding of the commands not being consistent across flash chips doesn't seem to be the case. They seem to all pretty much have the same commands, which means that I could remove some intended functionality, as in I wanted to have like a register file of all the different commands. So you can just basically populate everything as needed, but I won't need to do anything with that, which will be interesting to see basically how much I could support. But yeah, having like a small cache for those sectors would be great. So I can basically be agnostic to the different flash chips and also add in more RAID support. So the only ones I have right now are RAID 0, 1, and 5. It would kind of be ridiculous to do like RAID 10 or 60 or 50 or whatever. But I would need a lot more SPI drivers, and I don't know how timing's going to be with that, but we'll see.
Yeah.
So
Well, we've got the area and we've got the pins, so definitely an interesting project to try in the future. And maybe you could use the
yeah,
shared SRAM block for a cache.
yeah, that would also be definitely nice.
Great. Okay. Is there anything else you want to add?
I guess like with most things, even if you're kind of on the fence about stuff, especially if it's a learning opportunity, it's usually just better to jump in on it than to not even bother. Because I've at least this is kind of going back to some of the college stuff I did because I went nuts for my senior design project and try to make a server motherboard from scratch. No one really wanted to work with me because they were too afraid about doing anything that outside of their realm. So it's usually, even if you fail and don't do things right the first time, it's usually better to just jump in on it and then cause problems, figure out what's going on, and then actually learn from that.
I think I'd half agree, as long as the thing that you jumped in on wasn't so overwhelmingly huge that you were
Sure.
like guaranteed to fail. But I do think it's better to choose something that is difficult, that you know hardly anything about, that you're got a keen interest in doing.
Yes.
Because that will keep the energy going when you get disheartened.
Sure. Yeah. I feel like the best like balance point is having something you know about and then something you don't know about, being that like goal incorporated into a project. That's usually the best way. So you at least can rely on something that like you have some confidence in, so you don't feel completely disheartened when you have no idea what's going on.
Great. Well, thanks for your feedback and your insight. Really good to talk to you, Dylan. And I'll see you around.
Yeah, definitely. Great talking to you too.
Cheers.